Let's go Dolphins! What I'm about to tell you is something most fans haven't realized yet, but it could completely change everything you think you know about the Miami Dolphins draft plans. There's a hidden scenario unfolding, a decision that could shock the entire league, and if it happens, it could change the future of this team overnight. But before I reveal everything, be sure to like this post right now if you truly believe the Dolphins are closer to greatness than people think. And I want to feel the energy of the true fans. Comment, "Go Dolphins!" Let's go all the way. Now let's get into it. Today brought a massive update for the Dolphins because multiple NFL Pro Days are happening this week, and two of the most important ones just took place, LSU and Miami. These events are not just routine workouts. They are shaping draft boards in real time, and for Miami, they could directly impact what happens with the 11th overall pick. One name that is shaking everything right now is Mansour Delane. His performance at LSU's Pro Day might have just taken him completely out of Miami's reach. He clocked a 4.37 and 4.39 in the 40-yard dash, and that's huge. Why? Because speed was the one major concern scouts had about him. That concern? Gone. Completely erased. And when you combine that speed with what he already showed on tape, 0 touchdowns allowed, 0 penalties, under 40% completion rate against him, you're looking at a cornerback who is now almost guaranteed to go inside the top 10. So what does that mean for Miami? It changes everything. Because if Delane is gone before pick 11, the Dolphins are suddenly forced to rethink their entire strategy at cornerback. And here's where things start to get controversial. There are people who believe Miami should still target a corner early. But when you look at what this team has already done in free agency, adding multiple players to the secondary, does it really make sense to spend such a valuable pick there? That's the big debate. The Dolphins brought in several cornerbacks this offseason, including names like Marco Wilson, while also keeping players like A.J. Green and adding depth pieces like Artie Burns, Miles Waddle, Darrell Baker, and Alex Austin. This isn't an elite group, but it's crowded, and that raises a serious question. Why would this front office risk the 11th pick on a position they've already invested in? Now here's where things get even more interesting. There's another name floating around, Gerard McCoy. Physically, he fits exactly what this new Dolphins regime is looking for: size, length, athleticism, the kind of corner that fits the mold of what John Eric Sullivan and the coaching staff want. But there's a problem: injuries. That ACL concern is real, and for a team that is trying to build something sustainable, using a top pick on a player with that kind of risk could be a dangerous move. At the same time, Miami has a ton of draft capital, multiple picks across the first few rounds. And there's a growing belief internally that the smarter move might be to wait on cornerback and target value later, players like Avion Terrell, Colton Hood, or even Brandon Cisse around pick 30. And if that's the case, then what happens at pick 11? That's where things really start to open up. Because if Delane is off the board and Miami passes on McCoy, suddenly that pick becomes wide open for other needs. And let's be honest, this roster has plenty. Edge rusher is a major priority. Offensive line needs help. Tight end, safety, even wide receiver could come into play. And here's the twist. If multiple top prospects go earlier than expected, like we're starting to see, there's a real chance that a player Miami never thought would be available could fall right into their lap. That's the scenario people inside the league are quietly watching. And this is exactly where things start to get even more intense behind the scenes, because the Dolphins are not just reacting to what's happening, they are trying to stay one step ahead of the entire board. What I'm hearing right now is that internally, there's a strong belief that this draft is going to surprise a lot of people. Not just 1 or 2 picks, but multiple unexpected moves inside the top 10. And if that happens, Miami could be in a position where a no-brainer prospect suddenly falls right into their hands. We're talking about elite-level talent that, just a few weeks ago, was considered completely out of reach. Names like Reuben Bain Jr., Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, David Bailey, and Francis Maui Noah have all been circulating as top-tier prospects, the kind of players that, if available at 11, you don't even hesitate. You run the card in immediately. But here's the reality. Most people around the league believe these guys are going in the top 10. Some even think all of them could be gone before Miami is on the clock. However, every single year, there's that one player, that one unexpected fall. That one moment where a team shocks everyone, maybe reaches for a position like offensive tackle, maybe prioritizes something no one predicted, and suddenly, the entire board shifts. And if that happens this year, Miami could be the biggest beneficiary. Now think about this carefully. If Delane goes top 10, and another team makes a surprise pick, that's potentially 2 spots already changing the expected order. Add in quarterbacks or other offensive players climbing, and now you're looking at a scenario where one of those elite defensive prospects is sitting there at 11. And if you're John Eric Sullivan in this front office, you don't overthink that. You take the best player available, period. This is why, despite all the talk about cornerback, many inside the building are quietly preparing for a completely different direction. Because the Dolphins have needs everywhere: edge rusher, offensive guard, tight end, safety, and if a premium talent at one of those positions falls, that instantly becomes the priority. And let me tell you something else that's not being talked about enough. This front office is heavily influenced by the Green Bay Packers philosophy. That means size, athleticism, and positional value matter a lot. It also means they are not going to force a pick just to fill a need. So if you're expecting Miami to panic and reach for a corner at 11, that's probably not going to happen. They're going to be patient, strategic, calculated, and that could lead to a move that surprises a lot of fans on draft night. Now imagine this scenario for a second. The Dolphins are on the clock, and instead of going cornerback, they select a dominant edge rusher or a game-changing safety. Suddenly, the narrative around this draft class shifts completely. Instead of patching holes, they're building a foundation. That's the bigger picture here. And it all started with what happened today at Pro Day. One performance, 140-yard dash, and now the entire strategy might be changing. And here's where the tension really builds, because what's happening right now inside the Dolphins war room is not just about evaluating talent, it's about identity. This is a franchise that is quietly transitioning into a new philosophy, and the draft is going to be the first true reflection of that shift. You can already feel it in the way they are approaching prospects, the type of players they are prioritizing, and the way they are reacting to events like today's Pro Day performances. What Mansour Delane didn't just boost his stock, it forced Miami to pivot mentally. Because now, instead of having a clear option at cornerback, they are staring at a board full of uncertainty and opportunity. And let me tell you something that's starting to gain traction. There's growing confidence that Miami could actually come out of this draft with multiple impact players, not just one. Why? Because of the number of picks they hold and the depth at certain positions, especially at cornerback later in the draft. That's why you're hearing more and more talk about patience. Not hesitation, but calculated patience. Instead of forcing a pick at 11, they could address premium positions early: edge rusher, safety, offensive line, and then circle back to cornerback in round 1 with pick 30 or throughout day 2. And when you look at the names available in those later ranges, bigger, more physical corners that fit the system, it starts to make a lot of sense. This is not a draft where Miami needs to gamble. It's a draft where they can outmaneuver other teams. But here's the part that might divide the fan base even more. There are some inside the Dolphins circle who believe that the biggest mistake this team could make is playing it safe. Because if you truly want to compete for a Super Bowl in the near future, you need difference makers. Not just solid starters, but players who can change games. And those players? They're usually found at the top of the draft. So if one of those elite prospects does fall to 11, passing on him, even if it's not your biggest need, could come back to haunt this franchise for years. That's the risk. That's the gamble. And that's exactly why this decision is so complex. Because on one side, you have logic, fill needs, build depth, trust the process. On the other side, you have instinct, take the star, figure the rest out later. And right now, it feels like the Dolphins are right in the middle of that debate. One thing is certain, the front office is not locked into one plan. They are preparing for multiple scenarios. They are studying every possibility. And they are ready to adapt the moment the board starts to fall apart, which, based on everything we're seeing, is very likely to happen. So when draft night arrives, don't be surprised if Miami does something that nobody saw coming, because the groundwork for that surprise is being laid right now. Now I want to hear from you one more time, Dolphins Nation, after everything we've broken down, after all these scenarios.